I still remember the exact moment she turned her back on me. Not because of what she said, but because of how silent everything suddenly became. You know that kind of silence when your heart is still beating, but it feels like the whole world just pressed pause? Yeah, that's what it felt like when she walked away. I wasn't the type to fall easily. I'd been careful, guarded, maybe even too cautious for my own good. But with her, it was different. She had this laugh that felt like it could melt the coldest winter, and eyes that made you feel like you were finally seen for the first time. When we first met, I honestly thought it was fate handing me a miracle. And maybe it was, until it wasn't. See, when someone leaves you, people usually assume something went wrong. They think there must have been a fight, a betrayal, a big dramatic explosion. But in my case, it wasn't like that at all. It was quieter, almost cruel in how gentle it seemed. One day, she was right there, close enough for me to believe in a forever, and the next, she was gone, leaving me stranded in a space where her absence was louder than her presence had ever been. I tried to move on. I told myself it wasn't meant to be, that some people come into your life only to teach you a lesson before disappearing. But that's the thing about love, it doesn't care about logic. My chest still ached every time I thought of her. Every place reminded me of us. And the worst part? I still held on to the hope that maybe she'd come back. But then something happened. Something I never expected. The knock on my door wasn't hers, but it carried the same rhythm I remembered. My heart leapt before my brain could remind me not to be stupid. And when I opened it, I froze. Because standing there wasn't the girl who had left me broken. No, it was her sister. At first, I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight, like the words just didn't exist. She looked so much like her. Same eyes, same smile. But there was something different too. Something sharper, braver. She wasn't there to reminisce or to deliver a message. She was there for something else. And in that moment, I realized that the story I thought had ended was only just beginning. Because while one sister had walked away from my love without looking back, the other was stepping closer, as if she had been running toward it all along. But that's where things get complicated, far more complicated than I ever imagined. And if I had known what her next words were going to be, I'm not sure I would have opened that door at all. Before I tell you what happened after she showed up at my door, you need to understand how all of this began. Because without the beginning, the middle doesn't make any sense. Her name was Claire, the one I first fell for. She wasn't just another girl I bumped into on the street. She was a presence. The kind of person who could walk into a crowded room and suddenly, everyone turned their head, not because she was the loudest or the flashiest, but because she carried herself like she belonged everywhere. And somehow, I was lucky enough to be noticed by her. We met in the most ordinary way, at a coffee shop. I was hunched over my laptop, drowning in deadlines, when she accidentally spilled her drink near me. Most people would have apologized and moved on, but not Claire. She laughed, made some playful remark about the universe forcing me to take a break, and sat down across from me like we'd known each other forever. That was Claire. Fearless, magnetic, impossible to ignore. One conversation turned into another, then another. Soon, the coffee shop became our spot. She told me about her dreams, about wanting to break free from the small bubble we lived in, to see more of the world. I told her about my fears, my hesitations, things I'd never admitted out loud. And she didn't judge. She made me feel safe, like maybe I wasn't as invisible as I'd always believed. But here's the thing about people like Claire. They shine so brightly. You forget sometimes that their light isn't yours to keep. She had this restless energy, always chasing something just out of reach. And even though I tried to hold on, a part of me always knew, one day, she might just let go. And she did. Without warning, without explanation, she walked away. One moment, she was mine. The next, she wasn't. And that silence she left behind, it almost swallowed me whole. I thought that was the end of it. Until the night her sister showed up. Her name was Emily. I'd met her a few times before, back when Claire and I were together. Family dinners, quick visits, polite conversations. I remembered her being quieter than her sister, more observant, like she was always holding something back. Where Claire demanded the spotlight, Emily lingered in the edges, watching. But that night on my doorstep, there was nothing quiet about her. She looked me straight in the eye, like she'd been waiting for this moment. I didn't know whether to feel comforted or haunted. Because she wasn't Claire. She could never be Claire. And yet, something about the way she stood there made my heart beat faster. in a way I didn't want to admit. And when she finally opened her mouth to speak, I realized this wasn't a casual visit. Emily hadn't come to talk about her sister at all. She'd come for me. I stood there in the doorway, still half expecting Claire to appear behind her. But it was only Emily, her face steady, her eyes locked on mine like she'd rehearsed this 100 times in her head. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. My stomach twisted. Every instinct told me to say no, to shut the door, to protect what little peace I'd managed to stitch together after Claire left. But something in her tone, quiet but urgent, pulled me in. So I let her inside. The air between us felt heavy. She glanced around my place like she was searching for ghosts, and in a way, she was. Claire's sweater still hung over the back of a chair. A framed photo I hadn't taken down stared back at us, reminding me of the love that had slipped away. Emily noticed, but she didn't say a word. Instead, she sat down, folded her hands, and looked at me with a seriousness I'd never seen before. "I know she hurt you," she began, her voice steady. "But I also know she's not coming back." The words stung more than I expected. I wanted to argue, to defend the hope I'd been clinging to, but deep down, I knew she was right. Claire had made her choice. She wasn't the type to return once she'd set her mind on leaving. Still, what caught me off guard wasn't her honesty. It was the way she looked at me as she said it. Not with pity, not even with sympathy, but with something else. Something sharper. "Why are you here, Emily?" I finally asked. She hesitated for a moment, like she was choosing her next move carefully. Then she leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I can't watch you fall apart over her anymore." My chest tightened. Her words carried more weight than I was ready for. It wasn't just concern. It wasn't just sisterly duty. There was something beneath it, something dangerous, something I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. And before I could respond, Emily's hand brushed against mine on the table, deliberately, not by accident. The air froze. My heart pounded. And that's when the front door creaked open. The sound of that door creaking open froze both of us in place. Emily's hand, still resting against mine, pulled back instantly, her eyes darting toward the entryway. My breath caught in my chest. For a moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the fridge in the background and the racing pulse in my ears. I stood up slowly, every muscle tense. My mind spun with possibilities. Claire. It had to be Claire. Who else had a key? Who else would come here unannounced? My heart lurched at the thought, but fear tangled with it. Because if it was her, what would she see? Her sister in my apartment. The closeness between us. A moment that shouldn't have been happening. The doorknob turned, clicking against the lock. Emily rose to her feet too, her face pale but unreadable. She whispered, almost like she didn't want the words to exist, "What if it's her?" And just like that, the silence became unbearable. The door pushed open, slow, deliberate, like whoever was on the other side already sensed they were walking into something fragile. My chest tightened, my hands clenched into fists, and 100 memories of Claire flooded back all at once. Her laugh, her touch, the way she left without looking back. I didn't know if I was ready to see her again. Emily stood closer now, her shoulder almost brushing mine, like she was daring me to choose a side before the truth even revealed itself. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours. My throat was dry, and I could feel the weight of Emily's unspoken feelings pressing down harder with each breath. Then, the door opened fully. The outline of a figure filled the frame. My heart slammed against my ribs, almost breaking through. For a split second, I swore it was her. The same height, the same familiar shape. But then the light shifted, and I wasn't so sure anymore. Emily let out the faintest gasp, covering her mouth with her hand. I glanced at her, searching her expression for answers, but all I saw was something raw. Fear, maybe, or guilt. The figure stepped inside, their face still hidden in the shadows. My voice cracked when I finally managed to speak. "Claire?" The figure paused, but didn't reply. The silence dragged on, suffocating, electric. Emily's fingers gripped the edge of the table behind her, her knuckles white. Every nerve in my body screamed for resolution, for clarity, but none came. Just the steady sound of footsteps moving closer, deliberate and slow, as if whoever it was wanted us to feel the weight of every second. And right as the light hit their face, revealing the truth I wasn't sure I could handle, everything inside me shattered. But not because of who it was. because of what they were about to say. The light finally caught her face. Claire. My heart stuttered, 1,000 emotions colliding all at once. Relief, anger, longing, but before I could even find the words, she spoke first. You shouldn't be here, Emily. Her voice was sharp, almost trembling. Emily froze, her eyes narrowing, but she didn't back down. The tension between them was thick, like this wasn't the first time they'd clashed over me. Claire stepped further inside, her gaze burning through both of us. He doesn't know, does he? She asked, her words dripping with accusation. I blinked, my pulse racing. No what? Neither of them answered right away. Emily clenched her jaw, and Claire's lips curled into something between pity and anger. Then Claire dropped it, the kind of truth that rips the floor out from under you. She didn't come here to comfort you. She came because she's been in love with you long before you and I ever met. The room spun. My chest tightened. Emily's face flushed with a mix of shame and defiance. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about betrayal that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The room erupted with silence, so loud it felt like thunder. Claire's words still echoed, slicing through me like glass. Emily, in love with me before Claire and I had even begun? My eyes darted between them, searching for the truth, but all I found were two sisters locked in a stare that looked like it had been years in the making. Emily's voice broke first. I never meant for you to find out like this, she said, her hands trembling at her sides. But yes, it's true. I loved you before she ever did. I loved you when you didn't even notice me. And when she walked away, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Claire's laugh was bitter, jagged. So that's it. You waited for me to leave so you could swoop in? Always standing in the shadows. Always waiting to take what was mine. That's not fair. Emily snapped, her voice shaking with rage and heartbreak. You never wanted to stay. You've been running your whole life, Claire. You left him the same way you've left everything else. But I was willing to stay. The truth in her words hung heavy, and for the first time, Claire's expression cracked. Her bravado faltered, just enough for me to see the fear behind her eyes. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about love. This was about years of rivalry, of unspoken resentment, of a bond between sisters that had been quietly crumbling long before I ever came into the picture. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, Claire whispered suddenly, turning to me. Her eyes glistened, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. I left because I knew she did, and I couldn't stand in her way anymore. The confession slammed into me, stealing the air from my lungs. She hadn't abandoned me because I wasn't enough. She had left because her sister's love for me was too big to ignore. Emily's face went pale. She shook her head, tears streaming. You didn't tell him all this time? Claire's silence was the answer. And in that unbearable stillness, I realized the cruelest twist of all. The choice had never been mine to make. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was heavy with things none of us wanted to admit, but couldn't keep buried anymore. My mind spun in circles, searching for some kind of answer, some way to untangle what had just been laid bare. But there was no easy path. Love, betrayal, sacrifice. How do you choose between them when every choice hurts someone you once cared about? Emily was the first to break. She turned away, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand, her voice shaking. I didn't want it to come out like this. I couldn't watch you waste away waiting for someone who had already left. I thought maybe we could start over. That maybe my love could heal what she broke. Her honesty pierced me, because the truth was, Emily had been there when Claire wasn't. She'd stepped into the emptiness her sister left behind, and maybe that said something about her heart. But still, part of me couldn't shake the shadow of Claire. And then Claire, her voice softer now, looked at me with eyes that weren't accusing anymore, but pleading. I never wanted to hurt you. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done. But when I realized how much she loved you, I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought letting you go was my way of protecting both of you. The weight of her words hit harder than any goodbye. She hadn't left because she didn't care. She had left because she cared too much. And suddenly, I saw them not as rivals, not as two women fighting for the same thing, but as sisters, tangled in love, loyalty, and sacrifice. I realized then that no matter what choice I made, it would drive a wedge between them that might never heal. So I did the only thing I could. I stepped back. I can't, I whispered, my voice breaking. I can't choose between you. Not like this. Because this isn't just my story, it's yours too. And I won't be the reason you two destroy each other. Emily's lips trembled. Claire looked down, her hands tightening into fists. Neither argued. Maybe because they knew I was right, or maybe because the damage had already been done. In the end, they left together. Not hand in hand, not in perfect harmony, but side by side, with the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could salvage what was left of their bond. And me? I stood in the silence once more. But this time, it wasn't crushing. It was freeing. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone to come back or someone to stay. I was just me. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go, so that everyone has a chance to find where they truly belong. And maybe, just maybe, that's what love had been trying to teach me all along.